Hello everyone, welcome back to another WICSO Empire scenario. In this video, we're going to be looking at a scenario of what if Russia, or at least West Russia, because there's also East Russia. Now, Russia is a very historic country in the series, and as you can see on my perfect WICSO map, they're a lot smaller than most of their neighboring countries, and for them, that is a massive problem. And so today we're going to be looking at a scenario where this country is buffed and is going to go ahead and form itself an empire. Now, I do want to acknowledge that I have updated this map a little bit. I've added ports, which are kind of designated for this scenario, given that, well, Russia is in this timeline landlocked. And so they are going to be looking to expand, at least to get coastline, but also, of course, form an empire. Now let's get right into this scenario. Now Russia, they're going to go ahead and begin to look at all their targets. And as I already showed earlier on, yeah, you're not safe, Mr. Orange Country. Now let's go ahead and enable major cities. Let's go ahead and enable major military bases and also ports for the first time. I've also made sure that no military bases, ports, or major cities aligned. And yeah, that took a while to do. So yeah. Anyways, let's get right into this war, as Russia will go ahead and begin their invasion. Russian forces will start by targeting this major military base in the south and moving up, quickly capturing this major city right here. Now, it's going to become apparent that this country, despite being landlocked, is really powerful. And they're going to start off a second offensive over here, capturing this major military base, now pushing the St. Petersburg country really far back. Next up, they're going to line up against the Estonian border, pushing all the way up, reaching the coastline, taking a major military base, a port, and yet another major military base. At this point, this country is absolutely cooked. They're going to lose their last military base, and they're going to be cut in half by the Russian forces, who, yeah, they're cooking this guy. And eventually, they're going to isolate the main city of St. Petersburg, eventually capturing it, and from here, the remainder of the country will surrender. Going ahead and looking at this peace treaty, you can see that the Russian country has entirely annexed the St. Petersburg country, and they now have coast access over here in the Gulf of Finland. But they're not done here yet because they want to keep expanding their coastline to better improve their economy, but also their influence in the Baltic Sea, which they have very little of right now. So, yeah, what I'm getting at is they're about to invade Estonia. This invasion will start off pretty quick as forces were already in this relative region, and they're basically just gonna spearhead over across the country, cutting off the southernmost point. And this southern area is kind of cooked, so they're gonna fall over. And now the front line shifts over to the capital region, which will put up less a fight than the St. Petersburg country's capital did. And from here, we're going to see the remainder of the Estonian country surrendering. Now, looking at this peace treaty, we're going to see that Russia will go ahead and entirely annex the Estonian country. And yeah, they have a very weird shape right now, but don't be bothered by it. But yeah, really quickly before we get to their next expansion, I do want to say that I'm sick. I haven't been able to stream because I feel horrible, and there may be a few sniffles or coughs that make it into the final recording. Again, apologies for that, because honestly, these take longer than you'd expect to edit. Just trimming it down, I have a lot of extra footage that just doesn't make the cut, and yeah, this one's going to be a lot harder than the Dutch Empire video because there's going to be a lot of random sniffles I'm going to have to cut out. And yeah, that's going to be annoying. On to this next invasion. Yeah, this one's kind of a given. It's the next weakest neighbor they have. Arkhangelsk is going to become prey to the Russians. Russian forces will start the war off by taking their capital and this major military base. Then they take this one. At this point, this country is basically already cooked. I really doubt these two are major cities, probably just minor cities. And honestly, I might just change the name of the layer to just cities because I don't think urban cities could develop in any of this country's three cities. So, yeah. Anyways, continuing on with the invasion, we're gonna see that the Russians are not stopping at anything. This maroon country doesn't really have much of a military, and yeah, it's gonna cost them heavily as, yeah, they only have their military bases all the way up here in the north, which are likely minor major, which are likely minor military bases that don't really provide much a use because obviously there's all this land here that there's just nothing in. So yeah, Russia is probably gonna continue having a field day. And oh, and at this point we're gonna see that the Russians will go ahead and begin pushing up in the west. I almost called it the east there. But yeah, we're gonna see the Russians reaching the coastline here, where this country, who already had zero major cities, will go ahead and fully capitulate over to Russian forces. And yeah, I think you can guess what this peace treaty is gonna look like. Yeah, they like doubled their size there. They're absolutely ginormous. But now a question will arise. This country's ginormous, obviously, but who is their next prey? They could go after Poland, which could prove to be a good idea because it has a whole bunch of valuable land along the Baltic Sea. They could go after Finland, who is really weak in comparison, but most of their military bases are focused around the Russian border. So that might not be a good idea with your current state. You could go after the Farmers Union, but then again, you barely border them. This tiny sliver right here is your entire border you have with that country. You could go after Ukraine, but honestly, they might be stronger than you. You could go after East Russia, which is pretty low in population, or you could go after big old brown team, which I honestly don't know how you're gonna go about doing that. But of all these options, the Russians will go ahead and choose their eastern counterpart. The Russian invasion will start off pretty lightly, as Russian forces aren't exactly in this region at the time. Russia's kind of just going on a spree. They literally just annexed this region up here, and the military is kind of occupied with integrating it. And also, did that major city not carry over? Oh, it did. It's a lot further south than you'd think it'd be. Anyways, we can head back to this war where the East Russians are basically completely outmatched. They're getting absolutely cooked. They lost two major cities already, lost two major military bases, and things are not going well. Until, that is, Astrakhan will join the war, which I'm pretty sure that's what the country is called. I think that's what I named it. But yeah, although not really doing too much, this will slow down the Russian invasion into East Russia. And yeah, these guys are a little slower, but they're still gaining ground. These two combined, they're not very populated, whereas Russia has definitely that advantage, but also the military bases. These two don't have nearly as many as Russia has. Of course, they also have all this land up here to help them with that. But yeah, these two are very clearly outmatched. We're going to see the Russians now beginning to focus in on two specific areas in the south and also near this front towards the East Russian capital. And the Russians will see a massive breakthrough where they sweep this major military base and will kind of just go beneath the capital of the country. And yeah, they're getting encircled. And there's not much they can do about this because, again, they're not too strong. Heading down to this southern front, we're going to see that the Russians have gone ahead and secured this major military base in major city here. But they've also started a very small invasion into Astrakhan here. We head back to the capital of this country, which is slowly being enclosed on. They're going to lose that major city there. But this little endeavor in the capital will prove to be very costly for the West Russians. We now see them sweeping the entire northern region here, as there's basically nobody defending it. And from this point, we're going to see the capital falling over to the West Russians. And from here, they're basically home free. They're going to force their way all the way into this major city here. And from here, they're basically just going to blitz to each different settlement, military base, whatever. And yeah, they're gonna see very little opposition in doing this. They're gonna lose this major city and major military base over here, which basically leads to all this land falling over to their control. And from here, this country will surrender. And at this point, Astrakhan is definitely outmatched, and they're gonna go ahead and sign peace with Russia. Now let's take a look at what this war's peace treaty will go ahead and look like. Now, in this peace treaty, we see that, well, East Russia, it still exists, it's a lot smaller, and Astrakhan has lost their border with Ukraine over here. And yeah, both of these countries have been severely weakened. The East Russians had to move their capital from this major city over here all the way to this one. And yeah, that's not proving to be a good thing for them. But now, with them being in a peace treaty with both of these countries, they're only really given three options. Invading the brown team might really benefit you all too much. But yeah, Ukraine, Poland, or Finland. And yeah, the answer doesn't really matter. You may be wondering why that is. Well, we're gonna see something pretty bad happening for the Russians here. So we're gonna go ahead and see the formation of a new anti-Russian alliance by Poland. They're gonna be the first member and only member for like a day until Ukraine will join and Finland. So there go all three your options. So, what do? You can't really fight this alliance because they destroy you. So, how about you just violate some peace arrangements over here in Eastern Europe? Surely no one cares, right? And yeah, with this, Russian forces will begin their march over into this yellow country here. If I can turn off anti-aliasing. But yeah, the yellow country is like, bro, this is illegal. You can't be doing this. But this is Russia's videos, so yeah, they're gonna do it anyway. And the yellow country will collapse. They lost a war, 2 wars in a row, and yeah, that's not faring too well for them. And I'm gonna see if I can do all this treaty in one clip, which I have gone ahead and done. Anyways, with this, Russia is now a lot larger, but the Circle Alliance is like, bro, why would you do that? If you invade one more country, we're gonna retaliate. But right before they said that, Russian forces began moving into this guy, and yeah, this doesn't really help these guys because they said that after the invasion began. So we're gonna see the country of Azov falling over to the Russians, which is a pretty key moment because not only do they have access to the White Sea up here, the Baltic Sea and the Gulf of Finland, this lake as well, but they also now have gotten access to the Caspian, and with this treaty here, they're gonna have access to the Sea of Azov and furthermore the Black Sea. And yeah, this is pretty good for Russia. You guessed it, full annexation. And at this point, the Circle Alliance is like, okay, any more invasions and you're cooked, buddy. And Russia, they realize that the Circle Alliance is serious. So they're like, what if we get the jump on them? We probably still won't win, but we could probably put some work in on these guys. Probably, maybe, possibly. And yeah, so they're gonna launch an invasion of Ukraine, is what I'm getting at. Russian forces will quickly work into the north of the country as this is their most vulnerable border, as their capital's right here. That's like that far away from the border, and they don't like that. As well as this, they already have forces in the Azov countries, so they're going to be pushing out of there. And at this point in time, Russia is cooking this guy, and the Circle Alliance hasn't really responded all too much yet. These guys, they didn't think Russia would strike them first. They thought Russia would probably go back after this guy or maybe Caucasia, but no, they're going after you guys. And Poland will be the first one to fully militarize of their alliance. And they're going to go ahead and launch an invasion into Estonia in hopes of liberating it. And basically, what they're going to find here is that there aren't too many Russian forces. And they kind of just sweep through this area. and finally meet Russian forces by this major military base here. They're not going to take it though. That's, of course, too strong for them. And the Finnish will be tasked. The Finnish will be tasked with dealing with the White Sea Theater. I don't really know how this would affect the Russians, but probably not all too much. And yeah, Finland will go ahead and see a lot of success here, as they're going to go ahead and fully eliminate this coastline that the Russians have. But yeah, Ukraine's not working out too well for the Circle Alliance. And yeah, this is made even more apparent as even more Ukrainian land is lost day by day by the Ukrainian country. Another major city will be lost in the north. And at this point, it's like, what are we doing, Ukraine? If you fall, our alliance falls because they can solo Finland out before Poland and probably win that war. Or they could solo Poland off first and win that war. So, yeah, Ukraine, you should not fall. But the Ukrainians, they're losing their military bases, and a lot of their assets are in those places. Finally, we're going to see a massive city encirclement over here, in this city here, and yeah, it's going to fall. The Ukrainians have failed to militarize, and although they do have a decently sized military ready at this point, it's not going to be nearly enough to push back the Russian assault. Now heading up to Poland, they're going to see even more success over here in St. Petersburg as they're going to go ahead and capture a lot of this area. And yeah, Russia's holding on to this area desperately. And for the first time in the war, we're going to see Russian advances appearing outside of Ukraine, right here. That's weird. We thought they were entirely focused on Ukraine. Turns out, they're not really. Their military is just that large. Furthermore, in Ukraine, the country is still being steamrolled, and they're going to lose 3 more major military bases in a matter of weeks. At this point, the country is basically cooked. They're going to lose this major city here, which leads to their capital peninsula being cut off, and eventually the raiding of this area. And from here, Ukraine will surrender, humiliated at their failure in this war, because that was pretty bad. Head over to Poland, which the Russians will go ahead and choose to fight off next. And yeah, they uh they heavily outmatched the Polish. They were about equal with Poland when they were started in their pre-empire form. Other than Poland has a functioning navy, Russia doesn't really have that going for them yet. At least not in here. They might have one here due to more coastal exposure, but I don't know. Anyways, Poland will put up a pretty good fight, once again taking back this major city, major military base. But yeah, it doesn't matter because the Russians are invading into your core territory now, and yeah, you're getting absolutely cooked. At this point in time, the Finns will go ahead and launch an invasion southward in hopes of alleviating some of the stress on Poland. But this doesn't really do much because the Russians don't really care about this area. I mean, they do care about that port that they just lost right there, but other than that, they don't really care. From here, we see that the Russians will go ahead and quote unquote liberate Estonia, even though it should probably be the other way around. And they're gonna push all the way over here to the Estonian Islands, which they're actually gonna annihilate the Polish Navy here. Poland is on the run, and this will be made further emphasized as the southern front against the Russians is it's cooked. At this point in time, Poland is rapidly losing land, quicker than land was being lost in Ukraine, and yeah, exactly what the Poles feared is happening right now. They didn't expect Russia to ever get the first move, and yeah, now they have a little isolated area here, which is going to be forced back to this major military base here before they're inevitably eradicated. From here, Poland will retreat from Estonia in order to defend their homeland, and yeah, that doesn't really help them anywhere at all, as they're gonna lose even more land. And from here, a spearhead will begin to form towards the Polish capital, which will eventually be successful as the military is cooked. From here, this northern area will very quickly be wiped out as it was very exposed to invasion. And from here, we see the Polish being forced back to this major city, where they're not going to surrender. They're going to capitulate over to the Russians. But the Russians have just won this front against the Poles, and they're kind of tired from this war. So they're going to be like, yo, Finland, can you, like, give us back this land? We're going to basically white peace with you. We don't want to keep fighting this war. We'll spare you for now. And Finland, who deeply values their existence, will go ahead and accept this deal. And yeah, we're going to see these two countries white peacing. And this is what this peace treaty is going to go ahead and look like. As you can see, Ukraine has been fully annexed by Russia. And yeah, no one can really oppose this. Following this, we saw them taking like 2/3 of Poland. And yeah, that's a little bit of a healthy bite. And once again, they white peace with Finland, so no border changes all the way up here. Now, where do the Russians go from here? Well, that answer is very simple. They go back to this country, which at this point their treaty with has expired, and they're basically just going to annex them. They're too weak to put up any kind of fight. So, yeah, goodbye, East Russia, once and for all. And, yeah, Russia is pretty large. And I could end the video here, but I feel like they need to be a little bigger. And so they're going to take on a few more foes. And the first foe they're going to take on is Caucasia here. In the regular timeline, in I believe it was episode 90, we saw Russia invade into the Caucasian country, but of course they were in a military alliance with the rest of Mesopotamia, which, yeah, since alliances don't exist in these scenarios, we're gonna see that Caucasia is gonna get absolutely cooked by the Russians. Russia has a massive advantage on them, and yeah, they're gonna lose their capital, which will spell out defeat for this country. And wanting to hopefully try and survive, they're gonna surrender over to the Russians. Unfortunately for them, however, this will not be happening for them, and the Russians will go ahead and erase this line. And of course, they also will go ahead and demote their capital. And yeah, Russia, they're looking fantastic here. They're basically gonna send an ultimatum over to the Farmers Republic, and they're gonna say, yo, hand us this land here, and we're not gonna invade you. And the Farmers Republic is like, and why will you invade me? Like, what purpose do you have for this land? And they're gonna say, just do it. Like, come on, bro. You know you're not winning this beef. And yeah, we're gonna see the Farmers Union being forced into a corner here. They're gonna be forced into ceding quite a bit of land over to the Russians. And this is the amount of land that they're forced to cede over. Not too much in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, this thing is about its own country's size, and that will leave a horrible impact on the Farmers Republic. But I mean, at least they still exist. Am I right? Am I right? Anyways, from here, Russia is really given one option, and that is the brown team. But I feel like that would ruin the video because, well, that would make Russia ginormous, and I feel like compared to their beginning size, it would only make sense if they go after a smaller country. And yeah, I kinda am wondering who that could be. Not Finland because they're still at peace, not Poland because they're still at peace. They just took land from the Farmers Union. They could go after these Mesopotamian countries, but those guys are too small for it to really mean anything. So yeah, that leaves the pink team. And I'm gonna be honest, the pink team is one of my favorite countries in this series, but this is Russia's scenario, so yeah, there goes your ancient capital. And yeah, the pink team is absolutely no match for the Russians. Russian forces will absolutely obliterate the western side of this country. The pink team is forced into a pretty large corner, given that they're a ginormous country. And yeah, they're going to be forced back to this line here where the Russians will say, okay, we're done. You can exist. We don't care anymore. We just want this chunk of land right here. We're going to see this peace deal looking something like this. Kazakhstan will lose about a fourth of their land. I honestly forget what the border looked like before this. But yeah, as you can see, Russia is pretty large. And yeah, this is where this scenario will go ahead and end. I don't see any reason to prolong it because, well, otherwise they'd be like bigger than the rest of Europe. They actually might actually already be. I can't tell. This is obviously a Robinson projection, so yeah, could be very wrong. Actually, is this a Robinson projection? I think it is. I forget, but that doesn't matter. The Russian Empire has been finished, and now I gotta make a thumbnail, gotta edit this. After this, I think I'm gonna record one more Empire video and then another content video. I gotta record some videos, edit them, post them. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be perfect, absolutely perfect. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this scenario. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope I can work on making an end screen sometime soon. I don't really know how I plan on doing that. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this scenario. Follow me here on YouTube. I stream sometimes on YouTube Shorts. Follow me on Twitch, where you can see full screen streams. I stream games like Roblox, Terraria, Minecraft. I stream a lot of games in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I haven't streamed in a bit, and I hope that in due time I am not doing that. I actually might stream today, which is Wednesday when I'm recording this. Um, you're probably gonna see this video on Thursday, if I have to guess. But anyways, once again, that's gonna do it for this scenario. Subscribe for more scenarios like this. I don't know which country I'm gonna give an empire to next. I'm weighing my options, but yeah, that's gonna do it for Russia's video scenario, where they form an empire. And yeah, bye.